We are going to be eating the Hot Pockets warm, ladies and gentlemen, because the microwave is not working. The ice cube tray is out of ice cubes, so our drink is going to be served warm. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we're going to be reviewing The Amazing Spider-Man number 58. Spoiler warning ahead, we will be diving into the contents of the comic book itself, so if you haven't read it, just as a heads up. And if you have read it, well, rest in peace, ladies and gentlemen. My condolences for this very lackluster comic book. Now, without further ado, let's jump right into it and see where this goes. Just as a brief summary from the previous issues, what led up to this point, Janice Lincoln, Tombstone's own daughter, ratted him out, which caused Tombstone to go to prison. Luckily, Tombstone had a very good lawyer, so inevitably he was set free through the bond process. Now that Tombstone is out, he's seeking revenge to try to take out his own daughter from the living world. Previous issue was left off on a cliffhanger where Tombstone confronted his daughter with a pistol aiming it directly at her head. Janice, baffled by the actions of her father, she questions to Tombstone, "You're not really gonna do this." But Tombstone responds with, "I never wanted you to see this side of me, but you didn't leave me a choice." So Tombstone starts firing away. Luckily, Janice manages to jump out of the way, causing all the bullets to miss her. With her beetle costume in hand, she tries moving all over the room to try to avoid all the bullets. Luckily though, she doesn't get hit by any of them. Maybe it's the fact that Tombstone is shooting with only one hand. Like, bro, use both hands if you want to get a good aim. Janice runs right into the restroom in hopes of trying to avoid any more fire. While all this is going down, we move over to She-Hulk, where she's demanding the police force to move directly to Alphabet City now to try to save Janice from all this. In the previous issue, there was this convoy that was moving throughout the city. White Rabbit was trying to break the convoy to try to off Janice that was in the convoy. Inevitably though, she wasn't able to take out Janice because they're both homies. Turned out that Janice wasn't even in the moving convoy. It was actually She-Hulk pretending to be Janice. So an entire fight broke out, only for everyone to realize that they're just wasting their time and Tombstone is already with Janice. She-Hulk tells the police force that she's already going to be moving out with Spider-Man. She'll meet the police force there. The cops are like, "Yo, Spider-Man's already left, She-Hulk." So She-Hulk is left there wondering like, what? When did he leave? Spider-Man is wasting no time, ladies and gentlemen. He is already on his way to try to do something about saving Janice. Good thing he did because, it was kind of like close. Now, before I move on ahead, let's continue with what's going down with Tombstone and Janice. Janice is in the restroom trying to put on her beetle costume. She only manages to have enough time to put on the top half with the mask. With that portion of the costume already on, she tries zapping Tombstone as he's walking into the restroom, causing the pistol from his hand to fall out. Tombstone came prepared. He reaches into his coat pocket, grabs an EMP grenade, tosses it at the beetle. It explodes in her face, causing her costume to go offline. Immediately, she removes her mask because I figure probably not working anymore. She probably can't see. Although her costume is still bulletproof, so keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. Or don't. They really don't talk about that at this point. It definitely would come in handy to tank some of those bullets that Tombstone is throwing at her. Now with her costume offline, without wearing a mask, Janice is trying to plead to Tombstone like, "Dude, I'm your daughter. Why are you doing this?" Tombstone replies with, "You are state's evidence." Effectively, Tombstone isn't seeing her as his own daughter anymore. This is just a loose end for him. She continues to plead with him, saying, "I am your daughter." This is definitely a very bad idea. She should have just held out a little longer in the restroom trying to wait for Spider-Man to inevitably try to save her. Although we didn't know Spider-Man was going to be coming in. So I guess it makes sense. As I was saying, this was kind of a bad idea because as she lounges at him, Tombstone grabs her by the throat and just slams her into the ground. Having his hand around her neck, he tries choking her out on the ground. Luckily, our boy Spider-Man is on some good timing. He busts through the window, drop-kicking Tombstone, yelling at him, "Get off of her!" Spider-Man slams Tombstone up against the wall, telling him to stop it. Tombstone manages to tank that attack, brushing Spider-Man off. Spider-Man questions to Tombstone, "What the hell do you think you're doing, Lonnie?" Tombstone replies with, "Not me. You did this. I'm just protecting what's mine." Spider-Man confidently replies with, "I won't let you do it." Spider-Man tells Janice to move, implying her escape. So Janice starts running out the window. As she gets to the window, Tombstone runs right past Spider-Man to try to get a hold of her before she does jump out, grabs her leg, and grabs another piece of wood or debris, but Spider-Man chokeholds onto him, causing Tombstone to break free of his grip on her leg. With the force of Janice trying to break out of the window, and Tombstone letting go, she goes flying out the window. Mind you, we're on a multi-story building, so she hits the ground hard. For some reason, Spider-Man lets go of Tombstone to try to look out the window to make sure Janice is alright, which was a horrible idea because Tombstone grabs onto Spider-Man's mask and yanks it back, causing Spider-Man's head to hit the top of the window. I was personally thinking this might be like a Peter Parker reveal where he gets unmasked, but no, Tombstone just causes Spider-Man to hit his head on the window. I don't know why he ever let go of Tombstone, just because Janice was falling. Like, she is a very tough girl. You hold on to Tombstone, my dude. With Spider-Man trying to recover from his head injury, Tombstone just runs past him after Janice, jumps out of the window and lands gracefully on the ground floor, with his sights on Janice. So begins the chase. Tombstone is running after Janice, but she landed not as gracefully as he did, so she is definitely injured. She tries running into an office space building where she runs past this businessman telling him to get out of the way, but the businessman replies with, "How about you get out of my way?" Not seeing that Tombstone is right behind her, chasing her, Tombstone grabs the businessman and just throws him behind him. This causes the businessman to go flying. Spider-Man is luckily right behind Tombstone, so Spider-Man catches the businessman, telling him to go limp as he's catching him. Janice runs directly past some security guards that are on the first floor. The security guards are like, "Hey, stop it." But of course she's not going to stop. She's just running right past them. She sees some stairs and immediately starts running up them. And of course the security guards don't notice Tombstone right behind her. So as Tombstone's running by, he sends the security guards flying. And to be quite fair, ladies and gentlemen, this seems like a Scooby-Doo chase to me. Spider-Man, after rescuing the businessman, he tries running past the security guards. He doesn't have time to deal with them. He even loses track of where they both went. But he's still making his chase. Janice is already on some random floor with Tombstone right behind her. She is completely out of breath. At this point, Janice is so out of breath from running this much, but Tombstone is definitely keeping pace. Like, how is bro just keeping up that much? I imagine he's a heavier dude. Like, how is he not tired himself? He is definitely determined to take her out. I don't really see Tombstone as much of an athletic guy. Come on now. Well, Janice being out of breath, she runs into this random room, ends up crashing into whatever obstacle is in front of her, giving Tombstone a chance to grab onto her hair. Now having his daughter in his hands, he claims that it is over, raises his fist in an attempt to try to hit her. This is when Spider-Man finally catches up to them, holding onto Tombstone before he unleashes his fist on her. Spider-Man tells him to put her down. While Tombstone is distracted with Spider-Man, Janice manages to turn around and scratches his eyes, effectively making Tombstone blind in this moment. And this is where I start questioning the story a little bit, because Tombstone is supposed to be a very tough fellow. He manages to jump from a multi-story building safely onto the ground with no harm. Tombstone is supposedly bulletproof, so how is he getting scratched like this? You could say it's the fact that Janice Lincoln is wearing the upper half of the Beetle costume, which maybe gives an extra force on the scratches, but I don't know, I'm not buying it. Nevertheless, Tombstone is blinded by the scratches. Nevertheless, he does know that his daughter's directly in front of him, so he starts smashing his fist right in front of him in hopes of trying to get her. 1, 2, 3, 4 punches, and he thinks he manages to successfully take Janice out of the living world. Tombstone tries opening his eyes to try to see if he did some damage, but Spider-Man is actually in the way. This entire time, he was getting hit. Spider-Man somehow managed to have enough time to jump right over Janice, tanking all these hits. Janice is incredibly ungrateful. She's like, "Get off of me," and like, come on, man. You gotta know that Spider-Man was definitely saving your life in this moment. How are you to respond like that? Spider-Man does tell her, "You're welcome, by the way," as he's continuously getting pummeled by Tombstone. One more hit on Spider-Man's back and you see a crack, so you can tell some bones were broken in this conflict. Whether we're gonna see anything like that get addressed, most likely not. I like to imagine sometimes. Having Tombstone blinded, pummeling away at Spider-Man, Spider-Man tells Janice to go and get out of here, so she manages to sneak away from the conflict. Having her now safely out of harm's way, Spider-Man grabs onto Tombstone's fist before he gets another chance at pummeling at him. Spider-Man then says, "Me and your father, we need to have a talk." Do you know what you're doing? You can't come back from this, Lonnie. Spider-Man lunges up and punches Lonnie in the face, demanding, do you hear me? He gets 2 very good punches on Tombstone's face before Tombstone gets a hold of Spider-Man and just starts running in a random direction. So now you have a Spider-Man in what I could best describe as a hug lock. As Tombstone's running in this random direction, he's running towards a window. So you can imagine they're both about to meet this window and just run off. Tombstone goes, you want to get crazy? Let's get crazy. They break the window, causing both of them to go flying out of the building. And that's where our comic ends, ladies and gentlemen. Now, 2 things with that ending. It was pretty crazy to see that the last panel is technically gonna be the cover for the very next issue, where I'm assuming the conflict between Tombstone and Spider-Man hopefully. And second, with Tombstone's quote where he says, you wanna get crazy? Let's get crazy. I'm like, bro, you straight up just ripped that off from that Flash movie. Why are we copying some Michael Keaton quotes out here? Especially from the Flash movie. Like, what? What do we think about the comic book? Well, definitely very lackluster, as I mentioned at the very beginning of the review. Nothing particularly interesting happened in this comic. Maybe if you're reading one comic after the other in a subsequent reading session, maybe you'll be enjoying this as a whole, but as a singular comic, nothing was there of substance. Although Spider-Man was a lot more tougher, more standoffish in this issue. Besides that, nothing was really worth reading in this comic. The start of the comic, where Janice manages to just dodge all the bullets that Tombstone fired at her. Nah, man, I'm not believing that. Especially at like point blank. Nah. There was at least 19 shots fired, and I'm counting the shots fired by the blam noises that they had in the comic. And there was 19 of those. And you're meaning to tell me that he missed all of those? Whack. All in all, not a particularly interesting comic book. If you're just reading it in a sequence, maybe you'll enjoy it mildly, but as a singular bi-weekly comic that you read bi-weekly, nah, nothing really interesting there. Anyways, that is all I have for you, ladies and gentlemen. If you enjoyed this video at any point, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace!